we go. Week 8 of Snap Tackle Pod. As always, I'm Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41. That is Dion Clisso of PrepsKC. Wait, no hat this week?
I've got a hat this week. I thought I would make everybody wait, do a little hat reveal. Like I'm gonna go announce.
Drum roll again here.
So we have a stocking cap this week.
Stocking cap. Fall weather.
Fall weather.
Oh, North Kansas City?
For the city. Lincoln Prep. That was their
Lincoln Prep. Oh, I love it. We're going to talk about those Blue Tigers here.
Yep. I'm not going to keep it on because it's really warm. So I'll have to redo the hair.
It does the job. It's just not for the show.
It's like a fleece-lined stocking cap. It is very, very warm.
Maybe the only stocking cap out there that actually matches the high school's field. Yes. So that's cool.
Yes, it is. And
that's very cool.
Got that a couple years ago from Bill Lowe. And you know, it's kind of funny that a couple of years ago is when they had an undefeated season, and I want to say the hype train was pretty big on them because they had the D1 players. Yeah. Last year that was kind of up, and they didn't necessarily have as good a season. I think a lot of people thought they would. And this year, they are not really flashy in terms of talent and things like that. They run the football, play defense, and they're taking care of their business. And next week they've got center. And that'll be kind of the big one more big test.
That'd be a good litmus test.
Yeah. And they're hosting those two teams playing everything else except for football. And the opportunity came when Southeast ended their season and Clinton didn't have a football season this year. Yeah. Both schools were open. And so, no, I think the game, and we probably will just launch right into Lincoln Prep and Maryville.
We'll start last week's game at Maryville. Maryville's not the typical power the Spoof Hounds have been, but still a big test and a good team. And Lincoln Prep went to Maryville and got the win. Yeah,
the field goal at the buzzer to win 27-26. And a situation where 5 years ago in the first round of the playoffs, they were down 48-0 to Maryville.
Wow.
And Bill Lowe said in a tweet that he literally contemplated taking his team off the field, was worried about injuries and just, you know, the ability to even bring the program, you know, what state of mind these kids would be in the next year.
Yeah.
And so it really was a huge turnaround that they have completed there at Lincoln Prep and made them an actual football program. And they look like they could, you know, they're in class 4 and they'd be in the same quarterfinal with Smithville. So, you know, that sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have a really good season and you're in with what could be the best team in the division. So no, it's a great win for them. And I think that win means a lot to Coach Lowe.
Well, yeah, because we've seen them beat up on the IL for years, and then a step or two down the road of the playoffs, they get knocked out playing an out-of-town team or another team just kind of outside of the Kansas City metro area. But to get that win over Maryville, who, I mean, listen, they've got losses this year, but they were right there with St. Pius. They were right there with Harrisonville. Okay, that to me made the statement that Lincoln Prep is okay. They can be a player now in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, a couple years ago when they had that run, they knocked off a Grandview and did some good things there. But this team seems like it's maybe a little bit more of a team, and I think they learned from that initial kind of splash of success they had 2 years ago, and kind of the step back they took last year. And I think they're really showing it by winning tough, close games, and that's, you know, down 21-0 to Cardinal Ritter, come back and win 28-21. You know, it's some games like that are really showing a lot of character out of that program. It's fun to see.
Well, let's stay small. We're going to stay small here, kind of looking back at some of the big games and smaller classes last week. Lincoln Prep winning over Maryville was one. Let's stay on the Missouri side here. Center Odessa, that thing lived up to the hype.
Oh, yeah.
But Odessa, I would have picked Center in this game. But Odessa's showing some fight. Their numbers are lower this year, but they just keep winning football games.
And had to hang on for their dear life. Had a 39-12 lead at halftime. Everybody thought it was, and then Center just went off. Joseph Vick, their quarterback, had like 446 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. Ja'Cory Juice Love had 200 yards rushing, another 180 yards receiving. And they really just, you know, have got some players. And we talked about this before we started, you know, you better get center now. Cause I don't know if you're, and they have like 3 seniors. I only think 2 of them play. Yeah. I remember talking with Coach DeLong early in the year saying, and Coach Walmsgone said this very issue. It's like, what do you like about your seniors? He goes, I love all 3 of them. he goes, but you know, we were so they were junior and sophomore led this year that if they can, you know, depth is always a problem at center, like a lot of schools like that they've got to try and find some linemen and that kind of thing, but they have got some skill guys who are as good as anybody. And, you know, we talk about them a lot. You know, a few years ago, Norvell Trent, their outstanding tailback, unfortunately didn't go play in college anywhere, but he was the tailback that Rashad White didn't get to play tailback, who's one of the starters for Arizona State right now. So, I mean, that tells you, you know, and then Malik Collins, who's playing at the Houston Texans right now. So you could see that that they've definitely got some talent there, and this is the next wave, and it could be just as good as anything they've had.
Oh, a big game last week, Odessa, and that could be a preview of a playoff game.
Yeah, that could be a district final very easily.
Yeah.
I think they're probably going to finish 1 and 2 in that district, and you know, if you're center, you've lost 2 games by a total of 6 points to 2 teams that are combined 13-0,
undefeated.
Undefeated.
Exactly.
One's ranked number 1 and one's ranked number 2.
Yeah, and one of those losses you found out that morning you're playing, right? No game whatsoever.
And that's still one of my favorite games of the season. Talked to both teams, talked to both coaches, and they said, as kind of like nerve-wracking as it was just coaching football. It was getting out there, seeing what they're doing, seeing what we're doing, and just going and calling plays. And that's a neat thing. That would be kind of a fun, no one will ever agree to that, like a blind draw, you're going to play that night type thing. You'll never get that.
Week 5 in Kansas City every year. You're just drawn out of a hat.
Yeah. Drawn out of a hat at noon on Friday. Get your buses ready. You know, it's like you're going to be a road team. You're going to be a visiting team. You just don't know where, you don't know where you're going. So, or who you're hosting.
You're right. Coaches absolutely hate it.
Oh, that's made for media. Yeah. There's no doubt. It's kind of funny this week. And before we get off on a tangent, Smithville is open. They're number 1 in Class 4. Jackson was open in Class 5, and Jackson picked up Cardinal Ritter out of St. Louis.
It's all still the Clinton effect hitting?
No, this was COVID. Ruskin's out for COVID, and I think the Jackson and Cardinal Ritter, there's a few sprinklings of COVID out there as we've gone on this year. But I was ready to go to Twitter and be like, let's go to Columbia or Warrensburg on a Saturday afternoon, and go find a high school, and let's get Smithville number 1 in Class 4 and number 1 in Class 5 and play. And we've had some of that with COVID. We haven't had as much COVID this year, which is great. I'm glad we're not scrambling for games each week. But no, it's that Baser Glenwood Center game was definitely one I'll look back on and say that was fantastic.
Yep. All right, let's talk about this game too. I would have picked Smithville to win, to step up a class and go to Raytown, but I wasn't expecting that. They blanked the Blue Jays 34-0 last week. I thought that was one of the most impressive games.
I think that's their 3rd or 4th shutout this year.
It is their 3rd on the year. Okay. They've given up 39 points total.
And 10 of that was to Platte County.
10 of that was to Platte County, 12 to Grandview,
with
14 to Raytown South. And you don't know. I don't know. You might know.
Because I tune in to maybe see
some of those came
final
in late,
score.
Late touchdowns.
Yes, the Grandview and the Raytown South were when I'm assuming the sophomores were seeing the majority of the time.
Yeah, Smithville's just the old school program, right? They run the ball, they play defense, and they just smother you.
And they've actually got a pretty good passing game. Hedgecourt and is their quarterback, and they run a little bit of spread and things like that. But what they do is they get after you. I mean, it's a team with 19 starters back that was in the semis and came up short and said, okay, we're not playing around this year. We're not going to leave anything to chance. And that's what you're seeing out of them. And I picked them to beat Raytown. I didn't think they'd do it 34-0. And that bodes well for them, because a Raytown team is like state semis or state championship type, teams you may see in terms of, in Class 4, there's a mix of teams that maybe are more, towards a Class 3, which Smithville is a smaller Class 4 school. And then there's teams that are just on the verge of Class 5 that are a little more athletic, have a little more size and numbers. It's kind of an in-between class in spots. And so you may play a team one week that looks a lot like you, and you may play a team that doesn't look like you the next week. And you have to be able to adjust to that week in, week out. And I think that they've showed with their schedule this year and the way they're playing that they're ready for anybody.
Yeah. All right, let's jump over to the Kansas side here. Talking about teams that maybe, have a point to prove. St. James, it seems like, has been playing angry here, right, the last couple of weeks. Their first 4 opponents were Aquinas, Blue Valley West, and Blue Valley Northwest. I mean, just murderer's row right there, right? Closest game was 21 points. They lost all 4, but then they come back, beat up St. Pius last week in an impressive win, and they go to they beat Blue Valley Southwest, which, okay, you beat them, but they beat them by 30 points. It seems like, Radke's got these guys. He didn't let those losses, keep them down.
Yeah, and I know that they're in with Miege in the sense that they're off to their season doesn't look that great on a record, but they're going to get into that 4A bracket.
Yeah.
As it stands right now, if the bracket stays the same, if Baser gets the 1, Baser could face Miege in the second round.
Oh wow!
And I don't know if that's what's intended when by the K Preps rankings that the number 1 and number 2 teams face in the second round of the playoffs.
No.
So
there's so much of that. I mean,
yeah. And so it's, there's my column this week is about the drawbacks of both sides and the benefits of both sides. The state lines playoff system, but that's definitely a drawback with no head to head in Kansas and the 1-16 and
just no weighted
strength of schedule or anything like that. You can argue that Missouri sucks and you don't like it and you want to do something different. That being said, at least they try to do something.
I think Missouri, they get it right in everything except the success multiplier. I don't like that. I don't like, hey, you've got this great program. You've done it right. You've gone out there, got the kids to weights all summer. You got them doing 0 hour all year long. You've built up the youth program. You've got it going. Oh, we're going to punish you, right? How dare you go and win a lot of games?
Well, it's not everybody. It's just the private schools. That's what makes it even more.
Well, they have the multiplier, right?
No, they don't have a multiplier at all anymore. It's totally
I like the multiplier.
It's totally success multiplier for private schools only.
Yeah. Now give me.
I would have said, why not have Lamar won 7 straight state titles, get bumped up to class 4 for a couple of years and do that? Because I think that probably, because a few of those Lamar teams in class 2 could have done it.
Especially, for public schools. But I always liked in Missouri, I liked, what was it, 1.35? They took
the 1.35.
1.35.
What they found though is it really hurt some of the smaller private schools, some of the bigger ones that I think they thought they were hurting that didn't really hurt them.
Yeah. And they're talking about it maybe like right now over in Kansas.
Yeah, Keisha's working on that right now.
Success multiplier, because listen, it has been a Miege problem in 4A, and that's it, just a Miege problem. But now it's about to become a St. James and St. Thomas Aquinas and Miege problem in 4A, and the small towns aren't gonna be big fans of that, and nor should they. So do you think some change is going to come of that?
I feel like they're kind of moving that direction. It's gone. They've gotten away from making them have their own separate division. I know there was a talk of that too, and I'm not a fan of that. I think there's some advantages, and we're football focused here, so that's where I know that a lot of it really comes from the other sports, especially country club sports and things like that, where it's just really dominated by private schools.
And on the girls' side too.
On the girls' side,
that's why Miege and those schools can just dominate you.
Yeah, so I get that, but in the football sense, I kind of think that it's just that it helps in a certain extent, and it doesn't help. You could be like Dion in St. Louis, who had a great program and was kicking out D1 players, and their coach got sideways with their administration, and their administration wanted to take that program in a different direction, and now they're horrible, and they're up in class 6.
That's another good point. I mean, everything's cyclical, right? Some of them are longer cycles, like Miege winning like 7 years in a row. But many of those years, Dion, they were, if not the best team in the city, one of the top 2, 3, 4, 5. Right?
There's a couple of those teams that would have won 4A, 5A, and 6A in Kansas.
In Kansas, and probably would have, some years
competed
later,
all the way
big class in Missouri as well. That's really not the case anymore. But the problem is, Miege got knocked off last year by another Kansas City private school in St. James.
That's growing. That's really growing and is bigger than Miege and is almost as big as Aquinas. And so, and like you said, the one thing that stinks about it is that you have kids paying for success of others, and it's the group that goes through and wins a title. If there's not very good freshmen and sophomores behind them, they get bumped up and they get drilled. And
we're seeing the enrollment in all these Catholic schools and private schools in Kansas just drop.
Yeah,
there are no 6As, and then once Aquinas and St. James are down in 4A, I mean, you got Carroll and Capon, and I think that might be it.
I think that's it. And Kansas, Missouri, and St. Louis, they've got so many that's
like every school. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's still not an issue. They're still good there, but no, it's funny. The best line I ever heard before they did the success multiplier is Valley Catholic, which had won a bunch of Class 1 state titles. but is really a small school, and they just have a great program. Their coach joked and said, "Wow, the joke's on you. We're going 8-man." Because they were eligible to go 8-man if they wanted to. And they went from class 1 to class 3. You can only go 2 classes. You can't be like if they, if you applied that rule to say Lamar, who won 7 in a row or whatever, or 6 or 7, they'd be playing big class football. That being said, there were a couple Lamar teams who would come up here, and I can tell you, I can name 3 or 4 or 5 class 5 and class 6 teams who wanted no part of Lamar back in the day.
A little sliver of Missouri, right? The Lamar, Webb City,
now Carthage,
Joplin now.
Joplin and Nixa are kind of in that move group as well. So that's going to be a fun district with Joplin, Nixa, Ray Peck, I think, is in that group. Lee Summit North. That's going to be an interesting district, to say the least.
All right, one more game from last week in Kansas. We'll look ahead to this week. Spring Hill, not really games, but Spring Hill and Baser, they're both unbeaten.
Mm-hmm.
Spring Hill's the only unbeaten team in 5A. Baser unbeaten in 4A. Do they both stay that way?
I think so. Spring Hill's got
a scare last week.
Yeah, Tong and Oxy, Al Troyer and that staff. When they're good, they're going to beat you how they want to beat you. But if they're don't have the talent like they normally do, and this is not as talented a team and not as good a team, they are going to make you do things and play games not the way you want to play them.
Make you sweat.
Make you sweat. They were down, and Spring Hill was down 21-14. Needed a kickoff return in the fourth quarter. About 4 minutes ago to tie it, and then held off. And there was a field goal there at the end that didn't get made, and they go to overtime, get the stop, score on their third play, and get out of Dodge, get out of Tongi, basically, and so get that win. But no, I think Spring Hill's having a really good year. That was their first. The back-to-back games, they were up 28-0 on DeSoto, and DeSoto played them pretty well in the second half, and then Tonganoxie. So they're starting to get people's best punches, and they're taking them and still surviving. And they got Piper this week. Baser, I tell you, I think you got to look at St. James and Miage's teams to beat, but I think Baser's right there. I think Baser's in the conversation.
I think
their defense is legit, and they're always good on offense. And they really have a fantastic defense this year.
That east side is going to be pretty good. Throwing Piper and some of those other schools.
Yeah, there's schools that you don't want to play. Eudora, Piper.
Absolutely.
Paola has stuck his head up last week and got a good win.
Yeah.
So that's you start waking Paola up a little bit, and you're like, oh no, here we go. Lewisburg's. I think Lewisburg is 3-3. Ottawa under a new coach has improved. I mean, so that Frontier League has really got some pretty good teams in it that are all starting to play well.
All right, so we look back on some smaller school games. Let's look ahead now to some bigger games this weekend. A Remax Big Three. We'll say on the Kansas side here. Blue Valley and Blue Valley West. It's funny, Dion, we've talked about kind of the Big Three of the EKL and the Blue Valley schools. Blue Valley West wants to make sure, and I know it now, it's a Big Four, okay?
Yeah.
They're right there with Blue Valley and North and Northwest.
They handled Aquinas last week 31-7. And all you need to know is wherever I pick Blue Valley or Blue Valley West, whatever I pick, go the other way, because I haven't picked them right yet. They'll beat somebody and I'll be like, yeah, and then they get beat. So the next week I'm like, well, maybe that wasn't legit. And then I pick against them and they win. So this week I'm picking Blue Valley. So I'm going to guarantee you right now that Blue Valley West is, I joked with Coach Terrell about that, and he's like, well, I don't want to be on the wrong side of that. And I'm like, well, I think I like Blue Valley in that game. I think Blue Valley's playing really well, but Blue Valley West, that's a team you don't want to see. And if the bracket shakes right for them and they get in the right spot, there could be, just like a couple of years ago, they had Olathe North when they went to the state championship game, Olathe North on the ropes, and they were staring down the barrel of a semifinal appearance against a Blue Valley North team that they were good enough to beat.
I think on the east side in 6A, I don't know if anybody's up for beating Derby, right? But I think it's the deepest it's been in a while with Blue North, Northwest, West, Blue Valley, Olathe North, and Olathe West could all be players.
Olathe Northwest
Free State on the west side.
Olathe Northwest beats Shawnee Mission Northwest, who I like a lot.
Absolutely,
I like Shawnee Mission Northwest a lot.
Yeah.
So there's 7 or 8 teams right there. I mean, once you get that second weekend, and these things start to shake out, you're gonna have 4 really good games in 6A the second weekend of the postseason.
Some of those classes you're gonna have a layup the first couple of weeks, right? Yeah. Not in 6A on the
you may get the first week if you're up near the top of the bracket. You may get the first week, but after that, it's gonna be
staying in the 6A side. Lawrence goes to Olathe North in the Sunflower League.
Yeah, Lawrence bounced back and got a good win last week, and they had 2 tough losses in a row, lost to Mill Valley. And so I think Lawrence is a pretty solid team. I don't think they're as good as Free State. I think Free State's a better team. But Olathe North, they had that one little hiccup against Olathe West a couple weeks ago. But other than that, they're back to scoring 56 points a game, back-to-back weeks. They've done it 3 times now.
They have.
That's a weird stat to do that number, 3 times in a season. So this is just a good, tough. You saw Lawrence, a tough physical team, and that's going to be a tough physical game. And I think it's a fun one. I mean, I think it stinks they're not on the same side, so we could see it again probably. But no, it's a fun game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the third one on the Kansas side, Leavenworth and DeSoto. I'm intrigued by this one. Why is this one in the Big Three?
Leavenworth's team nobody's talking about,
I know.
And they are 1 win away from their second winning season since 1990.
Wow.
In 2014, they went 5-4 in the regular season, ended up finishing 6-6. Or maybe they were 6 and that's what it was. They finished 6-6 overall at the playoffs. And then way back in 1990, they had a winning record. I think they won like 7 or 8 games. So it's not always done great for them, but moving to the UKC 4 years ago was a huge thing for them. That allowed them to kind of maybe build that program. Yep. And their quarterback is outstanding. Talked to Coach Brian King from DeSoto, and he's like, we played him twice last year, and that kid's like Kyler Murray. He runs around back there. You can't catch him. He goes, he's tough. He goes, they almost got us both times. And he said, that's a good team. They're well coached, and I think they really enjoy the UKC now that they're in that league.
Or the Missouri side, ho-hum, just another big game in the Missouri Suburban Gold this week. We have Liberty and Ray Peck. Seems like they played each other twice already, but I get my Liberty Norths and the Lee Summits and everything because there's so many big games every single week in that league.
They're both 5-2. They both lost to Liberty North and Lee Summit North, kind of similar type games. Liberty's playing really good football. They've won 4 straight, and they've done it with kind of getting their rushing game with Richard Williams reestablished. Their offense is playing well. Their defense, which was a work in progress to start the season, they had so many people, including Jalen Weston, their outstanding linebacker, graduated off that team. That defense is playing better. Ray Peck has done about the same thing. Their defense has been good all season long. Their offense is now starting to play well. So these 2 teams, and they didn't play a lot for a while there. But in the late 90s, I don't know if you remember this, in the early 2000s, when Liberty was the bigger school and Ray Peck was like Class 5, there was a stretch there where they were playing each other almost every year. And it was crazy shootout, spectacular games. And it became a little bit of a rivalry. And they mostly, and they really weren't in the same conference until Ray Peck got up in the Suburban Gold about 2010. Yeah. And it really was a fantastic little run there for about 10 years where they would play each other all the time. And I think it was a good one. And I think they, and the funny thing about it is the staffs haven't changed that much. I mean, Sean Martin was on staff back 20 years ago. Chad Fergon's been at Liberty for 28 years, been the head coach for 11. So a lot of they know each other. There's not a lot of change in those programs, and they've had consistent success, and especially Liberty's kind of come back in the last few years and really become more consistent and kind of fully recovered from the split, I guess you would say. And you see what, and having Liberty and Liberty North, Liberty North is 5-1 and Liberty's 5-2. I mean, that's a great notice for their district, but that should be a fun game. And it's a good for both of them. They're both in different districts, but they want to get that win. And so no, I like that game. It's always easy for me to pick a Liberty Ray Peck game when they're playing each other.
Yeah. Lee Summit takes on Park Hill South. Park Hill South still undefeated. And we thought they were just at maybe 4-0 and 5-0. We're just going to run through that schedule, but kind of a closer than expected game to Staley, and then a 7-0 game defeat of North Kansas City last week.
Yeah, I had to come back to beat Staley. They lost Briggs Bartosh, their outstanding tailback, got a broken bone, I think, in his ankle, and that's big. But I think Odeker is the guy who stepped in. He maybe not quite as dynamic as him, but they've really got a good offense, got a good line. Nathan, I think Rico is the quarterback, and Moody Rubin, great. Moody Rubin's as good wide receivers there in the city, and Rico's done a fantastic job for them. So they've still got pieces on offense. Their defense is really good. That's what's been consistent for them all season long too. Lee Summit is a team that at the beginning of the year, Coach Thomas said, we don't have a lot of experience. We have a lot of guys, our seniors who are playing varsity for the first time, and but he really liked the team. He told me, he's like, these guys like each other. They work hard for each other. They're a great team. He goes, this is one of those, he goes, look, we all had teams where they're really talented, but they struggle in terms of their teammate, and how they work together as a group. He goes, this group is fantastic. He goes, I really want them to have success because they've worked so hard. Yeah. And I talked to him about it this week, and he said, I said, are you at the point where now they're finally kind of able to they had a tough stretch of their schedule, which was brutal. Now they're playing some teams that are more like them. And he goes, oh no, he goes, they never quit. They never gave up. And it's good to see them kind of have a chance. This is a sneaky good game. This is your Park Hill South. Don't start just ratcheting down and looking at that number 1 seed. At least some of the team that can step up and beat them.
Absolutely. Lastly here, Raytown and Green Valley, this game at Raytown, speaking of teams that are kind of junior heavy, Raytown, I know that haven't got quite the season they had planned so far, but still plenty of time. And this could be a playoff matchup too, right?
Yeah, they played twice last year. And I think they've got a chance of playing twice this year because it's kind of Green Valley, Raytown, and Belton at the top of that district, and the same in the conference. So it's the same three. Green Valley plays Raytown this week. The game is at Green Valley this week. And then Green Valley plays, they play Belton. So no, it's Raytown, I think the 2 weeks off hurt them because they played so well to start the season. And they would have played Fort Osage, which I think would have been a good game for them. And they didn't. And then they come back and they get a good win, but then they lose to Blue Valley West, and then they beat up on some teams that, beat up on a team they should win, and then they go play Smithville. It's kind of been hit, miss with them. And now they're back in the same spot where they're playing a Green Valley team whose defense is outstanding. And, last year they were so good offensively, and now this year their defense has really led the way. So it's going to be a huge test for Raytown. Really it's a toss-up game. I think whoever wins this is going to get that number 1 seed in the district, assuming Belton doesn't spoil some plans here in the next couple of weeks, but no, good one here in the last week of the regular season.
All right, that'll about do it. Be sure to catch KSHB 41 at 10:15. That's when our show starts under the lights on Friday night. And check out PrepsKC all Friday night long for score updates of any score you're interested in. PrepsKC.com. I miss anything, Dion?
No, I think that's it, man. We'll be talking playoffs here in another couple weeks.
Our game of the week, by the way, is Piper at Spring Hill. Another good game over on the Kansas side. We're going to be there as well at 6 and 10 o'clock with reports on that one. So let's do it. Week 8 coming at you, Missouri. Week 7 coming at you, Kansas. For Dion, I'm Mick. We'll see you next time right here on Snap Tackle Pod.